What's going on, folks? Ted from Immersion here, and I have some very exciting news for you if you're fans of the DM's Guild or homebrew content in general. So I'm here to announce an official ongoing series that will be happening the first Friday of every month for the foreseeable future, and that is a partnership between myself and the Dungeon Masters Guild. So every Friday, or the first Friday rather, of every month, I will be doing a sort of best of, or what I'm interested in the DM's Guild, a collection of a handful of different products that I looked at that I thought were interesting enough. The DM's Guild sent me a chance to review them, and then alongside that, it'll also be accompanied with a coupon code every first Friday. So this is for 10% off orders of $10 or more, and applies to any community created content, and it'll have, you know, about a one-ish week time frame. So if you're looking to pick up stuff on the DM's Guild, I'd say if you can, wait until about the first week of every month, as I'll have a coupon code to go alongside with that. So like I said, it's pretty much carte blanche on my part. The DM's Guild is sponsoring these videos, but I get to pick whatever I want to do, and then I get to review them freely as I see fit. So I said, you know, I basically, like I said, what do I want to review? I picked 3 things that I thought were interesting to me. They were sent over and I've reviewed them, and I'm going to talk to you about them. I'm going to do my best to do justice to each of them. I don't want to have this video be super long, and I do have 3 things that I'll be going through today. So I thought I would talk about and sample the different things that I found interesting from each of them. And what we have for you today are 3 different source books. They all range in varying price. They are best gold, best electrum, and best platinum sellers, respectively. So highly sought after, highly purchased, well rated as well. So I'm gonna go ahead and show you what those 3 are right now. Oops. So here we go. We have Playing Dead is the first one. Now, I mentioned this back when I talked about Ravenloft related content, but this one is currently $14.95. You can see it has 2 5-star ratings, and it is a very interesting book. And I've had a chance to actually read through the whole thing, and it's just so good. If you want to have like undead themed things in your game, if you are a big fan of ever Heroes of Horror, Libris Mortis from older editions, those kinds of things, this is the book for you. Not only does it provide rules for if your character dies, alternate rules for if your character dies and they're going to be reanimated in some way. They have a whole section for reanimated undead and the traits you get associated with it. They have options for reflavoring all of your spells to be undead themed. They have an entire set of variant class features for all of the classes to theme things more undead, as well as at least 1 subclass for each. It's 20 brand new subclasses, but again, over all of the different 13 classes, including the Artificer. There's a path to greater undeath if you want to become like a lich or something like that. Feats, spells, and magic items too. So that'll be the first we'll review, but I'll just give you a primer of the other ones. We have Journey of the Godslayer. Again, a best gold seller, $19.95 for this one. Average ratings, it's got a 5-star rating with 7 ratings, currently all full, you know, 5-star ratings. And this is an interesting one, and it deals a lot with divinity, the concept of trying to kill a god, divine powers, 10th level spells, new spell classes, divine avatars. It is very well done. This one is very near and dear to me, because I tend to run, it seems like more often than not when I run games, I end up running games with divine-based characters, and I very much enjoy that in my campaigns. So I'm going to be sampling some of this for my own homebrew campaigns. And lastly, something a little bit different is the Adventurer's Domestic Handbook. And this one I thought was interesting because it deals with a lot of things that some groups completely shy away from, and I get that. And it's the concept of, you know, relationships in D&D, domestic-based things, right? Marriages, love, children, all of these kinds of things. And that's not for everybody in D&D, and I recognize that, but it also does have a very good whole section about owning a business and building a home. Again, those are sort of domestic style things, but there's not great rules for it in what we already have about if you're retiring from adventuring or something like that and you want to settle down, buy some land, build a house, run a business. This has rules for that, as well as a whole slew of romanceable NPCs if that's your thing. So let's go ahead and jump in. So like I said, we're going to start with Playing Dead. Playing Dead gets the TED seal of approval, as we do have bookmarks, which, as I said before, folks, if you're going to release a PDF, give it bookmarks. It's dumb not to, especially if folks are going to be looking at this on their phone and they can quick jump ahead to different sections. That's critical. All right. So as you can see here, there's a ton of content. It's a 100-page document. There's a lot of stuff here. We have feats. We have a ton of new spells. I think the only thing we don't really have is a ton of new monsters, and I'm okay with that. This is a player source book. So we're just going to kind of skip ahead a couple pages, and I'll talk about this. So there's a section here that talks about what you could call, what would cause you to become an undead. These are sort of the traits that reanimating an undead what happens. So unlike what we have from Wizards of the Coast, there are stats and things associated with this. That they're saying if you're a reanimated undead, you automatically get the following, right? You're undead, you have dark vision, immune to poison, disease, and exhaustion, don't need to eat, breathe, drink, or sleep, advantage on death saving throws, and I really like this last one. If you remain motionless, you're indistinguishable from a corpse, which I thought was pretty cool. Again, this is kind of just a primer about the book. How you became an undead. Here's another thing I like, Undeath Arcana. This was what I was talking about flavoring your spells, right? So bark skin, it might look like petrified wood. Eye bite, your eyes emit a hollow or emit a glow, some sort of ghostly glow. Cure wounds, the target's wounds are magically stitched together with needle and thread. Like, it's very visceral and themed, and I very much like that. All right, then we have the character options. Now, I'm not going to go through all of these. We'd be here forever, but I did want to showcase a couple of things. So at the start of every class, it has undead class features. So these are things you can choose. You don't have to. And I think I definitely saw some that might lead to a little bit of OP combinations if you really dive into the min-maxing side. But so here for the Artificer, there's an additional list of spells. Pretty much for every spellcasting class, there's additional spell options that they've added. They've added grafts to the Artificer. So this is, instead of doing infusions, you're basically magically grafting things. And then they have Soul Cache here, which is just a brand new feature if you want to use it. If something dies, you can basically absorb some of their soul to recharge magic items you have that use charges. And then most of the classes that have options for things, infusions, invocations, fighting styles, and so on, they all have a ton of new things added. So you can see that here. Here are a variety of new invocations and grafts and things. And then again, we have the Reanimator style and so on. So I'm not going to go through that. I did want to jump ahead to the Cleric, and I figured I'd show off the Undead domain, or Undeath domain Cleric. But you can see here, you get the extra clarity. You can turn the living as opposed to turning undead. And then they have Terrify Humanoid, which is sort of the opposite of Destroy Undead. It's terrifying them instead. And they become paralyzed as opposed to frightened. So here's the Undeath domain. Here are our new spells. Disguise Self, Dissonant Whispers, Breath of Unlife, Call of the Haunted, which I love because it makes me think of Yu-Gi-Oh! Animate Dead, Summon Undead, Death Ward, Shadow of Moil, Dance Macabre, and Negative Energy Flood. Call of the Haunted is a new one from this book. So you get Negative Energy Infusion. Whenever you cast a cleric spell that restores hit points, it works on undead creatures, which normally they would not. And when you cast a spell that on a creature that isn't undead, a healing spell, it doesn't restore hit points to that creature, but it grants them temporary hit points instead. And I thought that that's actually pretty interesting, because there is no, like, you could have mass cure wounds or mass healing word and essentially give out to your living party members, if you're the only undead, let's say, a big bunch of temporary hit points, and you could do that as long as you have spell slots. But it does say if they are at 0 hit points, it still gives them the temporary hit points, but also restores them to 1, because normally temporary hit points don't do anything if you're at 0, so this gives you 1, and then the temporary hit points on top of that. Deathly Absolution is basically when you kill something, or an undead you control kills something, it generates a little like spirit mote that you can use, and it could do a variety of different things. One of is whenever you deal psychic or necrotic damage to a creature using a spell, you can send the spirit to attack them. They take an extra d10 necrotic damage, and the spirit is freed. You can have a number of spirits equal to half your proficiency bonus, and when you finish a long rest, any that you have are freed. And you can free any number of spirits on your turn. I think I think it might be too much to do. I see why they did half proficiency bonus. I might have done wisdom modifier, but I'll leave that up to you. Siphon of Feasting is your channel divinity. Whenever a creature within 30 feet of you that you can see is reduced to 0 hit points, you can use a reaction to cause the body to explode. Every undead within 15 feet of that body gets temporary hit points equal to a d10 plus half your cleric level. Every other creature in range must make a charisma saving throw or take necrotic damage equal to a d10 plus half your cleric level. So it's kind of like a Death Nova sort of corpse explosion, which is pretty cool. Bolster Undead is your other channel divinity at 6th level. As an action, touch an undead creature, and it gets the following benefits. Its wisdom and intelligence score increased by 5. You can only do this if it's under your control. Its speed increases by 10 feet, and its jump distance doubles. And the next time the target hits a creature with an attack, it deals 3d8 necrotic damage, and then this effect ends. And then again, it lasts until you finish a short or long rest. Potent spellcasting is standard. And then a Saint of Undeath. Whenever an undead is damaged by a creature you can see, you can spend one of your spirits that we got back at 2nd level, or 1st level, to bolster its defenses. The damage dealt to the undead is reduced by your cleric level, then the spirit is freed. So that might be why you want to not have it. But I think if you had more spirits, as long as you have language for Deathly Absolution and Saint of Undeath, that you can't apply multiple spirits, like instead a whole bunch of d10s or multiple reductions, I don't see any reason to not have multiple spirits. All right, so we can go ahead and scroll down a little bit. We can see we do have some other fighting styles. And some of these I think might be good even if you're not dealing with undead stuff. So for example, Revenge fighting style. When a creature you can see hits a target within 5 feet of you with an attack, you can use your reaction to deal a d6 psychic damage to the attacker. And then we have Bone Meringue, things like that. We'll scroll down. We can see all these different things here. The Greater Undeath section I thought was pretty cool. Bodiless Undead. I really liked the Death Beast, which is the concept of an undead lycanthrope, which I thought was pretty cool. We have this Morbid Miscellany section, which is new feats. Again, these are really good. Some of them are ones that you could take in theory as an undead. Other are ones that you could take just because they're kind of themed like that. For example, Heaven Cast is basically you become a celestial creature. We have a whole bunch of awesome new spells. I talked about Call of the Haunted, so we'll look at that. Grasping Hands of the Dead reach up from under the ground, pulling creatures down in a 10-foot radius. Creatures within the radius must make a strength saving throw or be restrained. A creature restrained by the hands can use its action to make a strength check against your spell save DC. Any creature that ends its turn in the radius takes 2d6 cold damage. So it's a cold damage and a restrain. And then we have new adventuring gear and tools, as well as a variety of different magic items, some themed for the undead, for example, the collapsible coffin, others for folks hunting undead. Potion of the Daywalker, Potion of the Sun Warrior, Sanctifying Amulet, Wraps of the Cadaver. Pretty cool stuff. All right, so next up, we're going to jump over to Journey of the Godslayer, which is another one that I love and also gets the points for having bookmarks. So you can see here, I'll give you a high level. We have the concept of deicide, which is killing a god, right? So the idea is you would basically be running a campaign where that's the end goal. You're out to kill a god for whatever reason. That's up to the DM and the players to decide. And they have this concept of the 7 sacred seals that you need to basically break to allow you to kill this deity. And they're very well described. And they provide a lot of different things and what will happen along the way and different alterations. Then they have Divine Favor, which I really like this chapter because it talks about different things you can do to kind of offer to a deity to provide, to kind of show devotion towards them. And then blessings they can give you or banes they could give to you, and as well as sacrileges. So things you could do to get, to entreat yourself to the deity, but then also things you could do to kind of blaspheme them, benefits and detriments associated with that. And then an optional rule using the influence stuff that we had in Mythic Odysseys of Theros. There's the 10th level spell section, which is the deity kind of allowing you access to a super high level magic. Arc temples are basically high level areas that you can kind of have to theme to take an adventure. Remnants of Divinity are different divine artifacts. These are the different avatars. You can see they're all themed around different domains. Then we have a subclass for each one of the main classes, and then an epilogue. So I won't go too much into the concept of what the different seals are because there's a lot here. But if we jump to the Divine Favor, we can talk about, it talks a little bit about the different ranks, and here are the different things of what you could do to entreat yourself to a god, right? Offer wealth, offer pilgrimage, silence, servitude, but then they have ones tied to each domain. So if you're an Arcana domain cleric, you could offer an incantation, perform a newly acquired ritual spell for no other reason than to honor your deity. For the ritual to qualify as an offering, it must be the first time you ever cast this spell, or create a new spell and dedicate it to the deity, and so on. And then we have same thing, the opposite of that is divine sacrilege. Is what could you do? Destroy a magical creature for the purposes of committing sacrilege. Hunt and destroy a group of spellcasters. I'm just using arcane domain as an example. Then what blessings could you have? Well, there are some that are generic, as we can see here, but then there are ones tied to the different domains. For example, Blessing of Unending Arcana. Once per long rest as a bonus action, you may cause yourself to immediately replenish a number of expended spell slots equal to a D4 plus 4. Now, I know that that sounds like a lot, but remember, these are things you need to do where you're basically like the teacher's pet of a deity, that they're giving you these divine blessings or reasons why. The Banes being the opposite of that. Then we have a lot of awesome 10th level spells. I really like this. One of them could be bestowing one of those divine blessings or Banes that we just talked about, granting people levels and classes when they level up, basically causing a shooting star to destroy an area, to make a bunch of people infertile, help people win a war, make magical effects of 9th level, of up to 9th level permanent, creating a magical creature or an artifact, claiming a soul, some sort of divine miracle, which is like an enhanced wish spell. Here's the Arc Temples, which I really, really like the concept of this. As sort of something you can set up. So, like, for example, we have Thunderdome, right, is one of these Arc Temples nestled in a mountaintop. And it says, now the temple is the temple of the wrath of Tempest itself. Lightning never ceases to rain down. There's a dragon there, an ancient blue dragon. There are those who wish to end its reign, seeking the temple atop the mountain, slaying the dragon, either to satisfy the god of Tempest through such a glorious kill, or become rich beyond measure, reclaiming the temple's treasures. So the quest, defeat the ancient blue dragon and his minions. And if you did, you would get the Blessing of Elemental Invocation, Lightning. So they have a quest that you can undergo and a blessing associated for doing it if you complete the quest. We have, let's see, we have the Remnants of Divinity, which are a bunch of very powerful magical artifacts that span a variety of different things. I like the Decanter of Life, which basically gives you a bunch of temporary hit points and stuff each day as you kind of refill and drink from that. You can see there's a whole bunch of different options here that do a bunch of different things, and they have how they're associated to the different domains. We did the artifacts. We have the divine avatars to cover each of the different deities. So I looked at the Arcana domain, Aeteria, the Omnipotent, and look at her stat block. Look at how much stuff is here. She's a challenge rating 26. She has a ridiculous amount of magical abilities. These actions, she can do stuff like boost up. There's basically one tied to each school of magic. So she could cast, for example, Impregnable Shield as an action. Until she fails a concentration check, her AC increases to 24. She gains resistance to all elements, and then she can also cast any abjuration spell from her list. She's also allowed to concentrate on 3 spells at a time, is immune to the effects of her own spells, and can choose intelligence instead of constitution for her concentration checks. And then again, if we scroll down, we have a variety of different subclasses, each one tied. It's interesting because it's like, see, the Arcana one is a Warlock patron, and we have the Death one is the Circle of Blood Druid, which can be possessed by different spirits, gaining different effects there as well. I really like the Wildlander Rogue, which is sort of a druidy rogue. As you can see here, they can like transform their arm into a bear paw and cast things like Shillelagh and Druidcraft. And then like if they stab someone, they can stab them and then have the effects of the Entangle spell affect them, as well as basically roll their sneak attack dice as like an internal healing solve to heal themselves. I think there was a fighter was also pretty good, which is not actually. I think the fighter is missing from the list, which is interesting from the bookmarks anyway. There it is, the bat. Yep, protection domain. This one's really good about deflecting damage, tanking, and protecting people. Really, really like that. And last but not least is the, oops, sorry, I scrolled way too far down in this one. Let's scroll back to the top. The Adventurer's Domestic Handbook, points off, no bookmark. So, but as I said, like, if this is something, and I know there's a variety of different folks who play D&D a ton of different ways. So the concept of marriage and you know, love and children and all this kind of stuff, pregnancy, is not something that's going to be in everybody's D&D game. But this is 154 pages here dedicated to people who are looking to take this in a tasteful way and employ it in your game if it's something that you want. It's a best platinum seller on the DM's Guild for a reason, because it's handled well. So you can see right here, it has about how to handle romance in a mature way at a D&D table. And again, like I said, this is not for everybody. We know this. Certain people can handle this better than others. This is things you need to outline early on in a session 0 or something like that. But like I said, some of the stuff that I liked about it is this owning a business and buying a land, or buying land and establishing, like building a house or something like that. They do also have one subclass for every single of the mage classes, or main classes, including the artificer. New backgrounds, new feats. I looked through the feats. I wasn't crazy about them, but I did like the concept that a lot of them are duality kind of feats, where like if you have it, the person that you possibly are romantically bonded to, like your stuff works better on them. And if they take it, like the two of you can kind of like, we are in love, our magic works better. And then there's this whole massive list of romanceable NPCs for you to use if that's something you're interested in, or just interesting NPCs, even if you don't feel like having them be a romance option. Advanced marriage ceremonies, which is also really interesting because they're not just like go to a church and get married. Some of them are like druidic or barbaric, and they're really interesting. And then new magic items, and then also vehicles associated with that. So let us skip ahead to, I guess, page 21, which is buying a business. And we have different steps here for different cities, as well as the general cost of upkeep, maintenance, supplies, how to pay your staff, what kind of staff you're hiring, the signage you need to make your place successful. You can have like a little example of breaking down rent, income, and expenses. And then again, how to buy land and establish a home, right? What the kind of soil is like, how to prevent squatters in your land, or how many you'll have. General upkeep rules, staff for your house, and then different builds here. Right here's a basic build for country and city, how to upgrade, the atmosphere you'll have in your home if you want to rent out your locations while you're out adventuring to have people you know, be able to keep some of the upkeep by renting it out, how to manage tenants. I mean, this is well done stuff here that, again, like I said, it's not for everybody, but I find in my experience, when I play these kinds of games where you get a ton of gold, there's not a lot to do with gold unless you happen to have a wizard or multiple wizards in your party who are always looking for gold to be able to add spells to their spell book. If you don't have that, gold is just a big blob of nothing that you can't use at a certain point. I played through Rise of Tiamat, the whole Tyranny of Dragon campaign, right? We kill tons of dragons. We have tons of treasure hoard. What do we do with all this gold? We were just paying off townspeople with thousands of gold to just keep them quiet because we're like, I have no use for this. Here's 2,000 gold. Just pretend you didn't see us. Like, I just made that guy's whole life. But again, this kind of handles that well. And again, we have a variety of different, you know, we see an architect, artificer, right, for building houses. We have a botany, sort of a gardening, college bard. We can see the variety of different backgrounds they have here as well. Like I said, here are some of the feats, right? The Arcane Guardian is one that applies to anybody. So increase your wisdom score by 1. And when you cast a spell of first level or higher, any creatures of your choice within 30 feet gain temporary hit points equal to your spellcasting ability modifier, lasting until the start of your next turn. I'd just probably keep that. They just get the temporary hit points. I wouldn't give it a turn qualifier. And then again, we have our big long list of NPCs here with art for a lot of them. The art is well done as well. Let's see if I can't skip ahead here. And then again, you can see that they all have related quests and encounters as well. So each NPC isn't just an NPC. They have all the information you might need to know about them, what they look like, what they don't like, milestones in their relationship, and then quests and encounters to potentially add them in. And again, like I said, you could just use these as encounters or NPCs in your game. You don't have to keep the romanceable part, but it's an option if that's something you want to have or your players want to explore. Really, I guess when it comes to NPCs and this kind of stuff, more is always better, because you'll definitely find a use for this, you know, in one way or another. Even if it's just NPCs' relations with other NPCs, you know how they feel. You know, maybe and you want to keep your world seeming like it's moving and it's a real world with actual things and engagement. Maybe the NPCs, two of these NPCs end up getting married. Here you can see again the ceremonies I was talking about. It tells you what they're ideal for, right? So here's a Thieves' Pact marriage ceremony, maybe for your rogues. Different temple, arcane manifest. Let's see, Festival of Many Masks, Bonfire, Blessing of Eros, Blind Pilgrimage, Blood Pact. So there's a ton of different options here. Harvest Dance, Royal Wedding. And I like that they all have their own unique ways that they're handled. And then again, we have the magic items, right? Again, tied to, some of these again are just tied to children, right? If you want to go with that, right? I saw a armored papoose, a cloth swaddle. There was a calming swing, fertility herbs. And then we have things like, you know, different potions and concoctions and things. Mirror of Minor Communication. I think this is kind of heavily, and they even have a suggested gold piece, which is always nice, as we talk about constantly, the lack of things for selling and buying magic items. Very similar to the Beauty and the Beast mirror here. And then we have vehicles, right? Business vehicles, carts and merchant wagons, but then also covered wagons, tent wagons, wagons that you live in, things for a family, and then a set of different ways that you could upgrade the various vehicles here. And then it's the list of stat blocks for all the NPCs at the end. So I tried to give you a variety of different things that I thought were interesting, and that's the process of how this series is going to continue every month. In some instances, the DM's Guild may tell us, hey, we want you to check out this thing because we think you'll like it, but for the most part, I'm given free range. And the reason that I'm doing it monthly is that gives time for new stuff to come out, and then, you know, I can see what kind of the buzz is about on the DM's Guild and see if, you know, oh, I'm particularly looking for this one thing, let me go pick that up, and then I'll review it for all of you. So I don't know what the time frame is. This is probably a little bit longer than, you know, it's the first video. I'm getting the hang of this. I did 3 different things. I wanted to show off different pieces of each one, but as such, the video is a little bit on the longer side. So I may end up reducing how much I cover or reducing the amount of things I cover in future videos. So again, there'll be a link in the description where you can go and pick up all of these. They're affiliate links, so if you pick them up with those links, then I get a percentage of that as well. So thank you for that if you do that. And you can use the coupon code JUNESPOTLIGHT10. We'll have that in the description. JUNESPOTLIGHT10, and that is 10% off orders of $10 or more. Applies to any community-created content, and it's good through the 9th of June. So just over a week there. Right, that is, what is that? It is, yeah, just a little, actually a little less than a week. So I'll see if I can't maybe make that run a little bit longer going forward. So thank you all so much for watching. Thank you once again to the DM's Guild for sponsoring this video. And I will see you next month for more DM's Guild content.